Hey everyone, I'm so glad you're still watching AVGN after 15 years. I'm so glad to have people with a good sense of humor to appreciate this stuff, and I hope to keep the entertainment coming. Hey, guess what? I just realized I recorded this entire video and realized this mic is not plugged in. The shotgun mic is plugged in. So, hey, at least you can still hear me, right? Back to the video. It's been a long time since I've done any kind of behind-the-scenes thing. The last time I did a room tour was in 2016, I think. Not a whole lot has changed since, but I want to share with you a few of my technical updates, the basic setup of a nerd episode. I'll talk about some of the projects that you don't see, the ones that are all about maintenance, and I'll even address a few complaints of the asshole-ish variety, which does not represent the majority of you. But yeah, that'll be fun. Also, check in real soon for the Cinemassacre podcast. It gives me the chance to talk a lot more and answer some fan questions. So, nerd episodes come in all shapes and forms. Some are basic and simple, while others are epic and crazy, like the recent Vegas episode. That was the biggest passion project of the year so far, and took several months to make. But no matter what kind of episode it is, it always starts with the gameplay. I have a new HDMI switcher. Now, of course, most of these old game consoles do not have HDMI, so I have this analog to digital adapter here. Also for NES, I've mostly been using the AVS console, which is basically an NES with an HDMI output. I also use the Super NT, which has HDMI too. Yes, this all loses a little bit of the nostalgic factor, but I still have the old consoles. Also, I still have the Nintoaster, and even had a fan add an HDMI output. Thank you very much. For playing the games, I use EverDrives whenever possible, which means I can load almost any game on it without having to find it on my shelf and clean it out. I still have the physical games and show them in the videos, but when I record these days, I often use the EverDrives only for a matter of convenience and image quality. Now, I've had all kinds of problems with game capture and have tried many different devices and many different methods over the years. In the past, I've used a DVD recorder. I recorded straight onto a PC laptop, which Mike helped me out with. But lots of times, I would play a game for hours and then realize nothing recorded. Or the video was fine, but the sound was glitchy. Or the video stuttered or froze completely. So, Screenwave hooked me up. They got me a new PC, and it's working awesome. It even has colored lights and shit. Strangely, this desk is from the 80s, had it since I was a kid. And back then, they didn't consider that computer wires would ever have to go under here. So the entire bottom is boxed in. So for the first time ever, I had to drill a hole in it, which was surprisingly difficult. This was some really tough 80s wood. I'm much more familiar with Mac, so I don't really use the PC for anything except game capture. Now, still, I do have problems with the connections. Sometimes I'll switch on a console and it just doesn't show up. So I have to unplug wires, plug them in again, switch inputs back and forth until it refreshes. So lots of my work hours in general is spent fixing things that go wrong. And these are just a few examples off the top of my head. Earlier this year, I had a hard drive issue. For the past few years, I've used a server with 24 hard drives in it that stores all my past videos and project files. That's in case I ever need to go back and grab a clip from something or whatever. I'm obsessive about organizing. I have a folder for finished videos and a folder for project files, raw footage, graphics, everything else. Inside these folders are AVGN, BJ, which is Board James, Monster Madness, and everything else. Folder within folder within folder. It's all stored on one big volume, so I don't have to switch out and unplug different hard drives to find shit. Well, earlier this year, the server stopped working. It just wouldn't stay mounted. So for the next few weeks, I was using my backup drives and copying everything onto bigger drives. I could never fully explain how time-consuming and mentally exhausting this was. I had to draw plans of where I was going to copy everything to. You can see here how long it was taking to copy lots of this stuff. I probably have like 80 terabytes of crap when you add it all up. I'm not even sure, to be honest. When just one folder says it's going to take 7 days, you know you're in for a long haul. To make things more complicated, Earlier this year, around the same time, I got a new Mac. My current Mac was from 2014, and in the world of computers and video editing, that's pretty old. So I was having lots of problems with Adobe Premiere. I still do, which is what I use to edit. I don't use Final Cut anymore because Apple hasn't updated that since since the iPhone probably. There's Final Cut X, but that's like a totally different thing. So anyway, I got a new Mac, new version of Premiere, everything's all updated. But it was like a month of installing programs, reorganizing my data, and after all was said and done, my old server suddenly works again. It turned out it was just a bad Thunderbolt wire, an 18-foot wire that cost $215. It's that long because the server's loud and I like putting it in a different room than I edit in. But hey, now all my stuff is super backed up. But still, there's a problem. The old server doesn't work with the new Mac, so ScreenWave set me up with a whole new server. So yes, that meant copying everything again, but at least it was all onto one big volume and easier to organize than if it were on a bunch of separate drives. So it's been great, but the server is so loud, I had to spend a few days putting up insulation, drywall, and foam to muffle the noise. And even though we're almost there solving my data issues, we're still working on it. There's still some outstanding issues. I know I'm rambling a lot here. I don't know how interesting this is, but I figured, hey, why not just tell you some of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. ScreenWave also helped me with my internet because my internet was real shitty. Imagine trying to do what I do with the internet going down all the time. So it was a big project. They ran Ethernet cables all through my house and everything, and it's working awesome now, but there's still some tricky areas that we're working on. So that's another project that is in the works. Now let's get back into the nerd room and talk about my camera setup. So I got sick of having tripod legs in the way of my consoles, so I like having the camera on this makeshift small tripod I made. Basically, it's just a tripod head screwed onto a piece of wood, because otherwise the floor is a cluttered mess of tripod legs. There's the camera tripod, the microphone stand, the light stands. I'm stepping over shit all the time, so eliminating tripods makes my day efficient. I still use a tripod whenever I have to, but for the main setup, like this, I got it down to a science. So what's all this crap? Well, this is the teleprompter. I use it for the longer speeches, especially for the movie reviews. That way I can look directly at the camera while reading the script for the entire duration of the video. I still mess up and flub some lines, but it cuts down on trying to remember and rehearse. When I'm speaking on camera the whole time, I have the flexibility of being able to select which parts I want to show myself or cut to other images. Typically, when I don't have any images to show for what I'm talking about, I'll just show myself. Generic. For the nerd videos, I usually read the voiceover or narration right off the script, but the on-camera parts, I use the teleprompter for the long speeches, and otherwise I just rehearse or even ad-lib sometimes. Here's how it works. I play the script off the laptop. I adjust the speed of the text scroll with a mouse and keyboard. But it's a little tricky because I also like to show my hands for expression, The laptop is connected to an external monitor with the screen reversed because it reflects onto a mirror, which is a one-way glass. So the camera lens is actually seeing through the script, which is kind of weird when you think about it. So this way I can read while looking directly at the camera. Once the teleprompter's set up, it's not something you want to take apart again because it's time-consuming. First I have to unscrew and change the tripod mount on the bottom of the camera. Then I have to plug in the monitor, adjust the angle of the mirror, focus the lens, etc. Let's talk about the microphone. Whenever I'm doing just plain voiceover, I use this mic right here. I record into a Tascam recorder because there's no point of shooting video when you're only using the audio. Whenever I'm on screen for a movie review or something like this, I'll just plug the mic directly into the camera. But if it's a nerd video, I use a shotgun mic that's dangling from the ceiling. I like to have it up there because, once again, I don't like having a stand in the way. I've had some problems with this mic. Every now and then I get a weird buzzing sound that we have to remove when editing using filters. And I've tried different mics and we haven't quite got to the bottom of it. Screenwave and I have been working to resolve it. It tends to happen when the mic gets a little loose, which is why I avoid touching it whenever possible. Once it's up there, it usually stays up there. The wires run all across the ceiling and into the camera. So that's a lot of stuff I prefer not to move. Now let's talk about the lights. What is this? Some kind of anti-gravity experiment? It's a pretty funny way to get the tripod off the floor, but it does the trick. The lights are LED. They don't get hot, which is nice. They can dim and change color temperature too. But even at their dimmest settings, they're a little too bright, which is why I put wax paper over them. I have several lights all over the side of the room because I want to get the most even lighting possible. I can't bring them too close because you get reflection in my glasses. I found spacing them apart works better. Also, little trick, I have a pair of glasses with no lenses in them. That helps with the glare, but that only works when I don't have to read. Also, my camera, lights, and everything are plugged into 2 power strips. So when I come into the room and go to work, all I gotta do is flick 1, 2, and everything comes on. I'm set to go. The purpose of all this is to shoot episodes as quickly as possible. Now, sometimes that can't be done. For example, the Vegas episode was a lot of extra work, and there's always going to be something like that. But for a basic episode, this simple setup greatly improves my workflow. Otherwise, I would have to set up the camera, frame the shot, set the focus, set up the lights, set up the microphone, and check and adjust everything. By having it all set up beforehand, it saves me a lot of time. Now, the only little problem is that I'm locked into this position. Whenever I need a different angle of the room, let's say if the nerd is over at the NES shelf or something, that means everything has to move. The microphone, I have to take this wire down, and then the lights, you can imagine how much of a pain these are. The camera has to go on a tripod, so that means the teleprompter needs to be disassembled. The wire that plugs into the power has to come out. Then I usually have to switch to battery, and then, oh shit, I forgot to charge it. Anywhere I want to look, there's so much crap to move out of the way, and that's all very time consuming. And that's nothing unusual. It's very common on a movie set that most of the time is spent setting up shots and